Hello everyone and welcome to Season 6, Episode 14 of Pro Wrestling's Top 50. I'm your host Travis McNeil, and today we continue our countdown of the top 50 matches of 2021 with match number 37 on our list, which is the death match for the GCW World Title between the champion Nick Gage and the challenger Matt Cardona from the GCW Homecoming Weekend 2021 Night 1 event held on July the 24th of 2021. This match is a little bit of a mess. There's a lot of criticism I could throw at it. A lot of things about it that aren't great. But the things that are great about it are so good, specifically the performance of Matt Cardona, which we're going to talk about, that make it a more than worthy inclusion on this list, and a very, very memorable match overall. The way that GCW built this up was really, really cool because on paper, it was a match that I did not care about at all. I'm going to be honest, Matt Cardona has a very loyal fan base. He has a whole action figure thing and everything like that, and good on him for it. But he's somebody, there's a few wrestlers in the WWE, I'm not going to bother naming the names right now, but, near the end of their WWE runs, I had thought to myself, I could never see this guy wrestle again, and I would be perfectly okay with it. And that sounds really, really harsh. But it's just that these wrestlers, I felt like I'd seen it all for them for so long, for the 15 years or however long, Cardona was working WWE. I felt like I'd seen, everything I could possibly see from a Zack Ryder match, and I didn't need it anymore. Whether he ended up in Impact, he made a brief appearance in AEW, from a selfish viewership standpoint, I was kind of hoping he didn't stick around there. When he started doing the indies and, GCW was going to bring him in as this big attraction, and it wasn't for me. That said, absolutely blown away by this man's performance in this match. It is incredible. Definitely, a career highlight for him. From this match forward, his GCW run didn't do a ton for me. But it got a lot of buzz, this match specifically. A lot of people are really into it. So, ultimately I have no problems with it. But how they built this match up, they did a pretty good job for making me go from someone that didn't care at all about this match to, the night of the show, I'd ordered this one on Fight TV, kind of being like, okay, maybe it'll be kind of cool. And ultimately, like I said, it ended up blowing me away. So how we got here, Cardona had made some offhand comments about Nick Gage on Twitter. That led to Nick Gage inviting Matt Cardona to the GCW Tournament of Survival deathmatch tournament, to basically fight him and confront him in a deathmatch. The night of that show, which was a great show, Matt Cardona did not show up. So, we kind of looked at this as like, okay, whatever. I'm kind of glad that didn't happen. The very next night, though, they did something really cool. GCW had been building to a Nick Gage versus Jon Moxley match, which was a big deal. Jon Moxley appearing at the end of the spring break show to confront Nick Gage, who had just, reclaimed the GCW World Title, beating his nemesis Ricky Shane Page in a death match. So, that kind of had some buzz around it. They had Moxley shown up at a show in Vegas to confront Gage. So they had somebody come out dressed as a druid, G-Raver, who was a performer in GCW, had these kind of druids accompanying them to the ring. So somebody shows up in a druid outfit, kind of starts doing, all the Moxley mannerisms that gets a big buzz in the crowd, drops Nick Gage with the Death Rider, and then takes off, the druid hood to reveal himself as Matt Cardona. It was really cool. It was really unexpected. It got a big shock from the crowd, and it led to this match. Coming into this match, GCW did a really good job, comparing this to Nick Gage's match with David Arquette, which if you've never seen it, it is an incredible spectacle, the likes of which we haven't really seen. Go find that if you can. I'm sure it's probably only available on Fight TV. It might be available on DVD or Blu-ray or digital download through SmartMark Video, perhaps. But that match was something else. So they're kind of building it as, Cardona is in for what David Arquette's, in for. He doesn't know what he's getting into. And Gage is, going to brutally destroy this guy and attempt to murder him, more or less. So we get this match. Matt Cardona comes out wearing all white gear. So, being the wrestling geek that I am, I knew this meant that he was going to bleed. I didn't know to what level that was going to be, but, that was kind of my telltale sign of maybe this is going to be something a little more interesting than I thought it would be. The atmosphere for this match is amazing. The GCW fan base, for better or worse, are very passionate. They love Nick Gage. They treat him as a god. They were so hostile toward Cardona coming out for his entrance. MLJ, the ring announcer for GCW, he's got like the Nick Gage ski mask on during the ring introductions. The announcers are firmly behind Nick Gage, so there's this clear sign of GCW bias towards their champion, which again gives Cardona even more of this outsider, you don't belong here, you sports entertainer feel to the whole thing. Gage jumps Cardona before the bell and just completely pummels him, which obviously the crowd goes ballistic for. It was a great start to the match. He brings in light tubes, and something that I loved is he brings these light tubes in and he sets them up, and Matt Cardona, he's got this pretty high in-ring IQ. He's wrestled for the WWE, where they really push, psychology and stuff like that, right? So he tullies Nick Gage into these light tubes. And it's just this great moment of you're maybe hoping that Zack Ryder is going to get destroyed by all of these tubes, but he just used them to his advantage against Nick Gage. So it was really cool. He goes, and does like the broski boot and the woo 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 taunt and all of that just to get the crowd's ire. And as he's taunting the crowd, something that I loved about this, we've seen so many times in deathmatch wrestling, the whole self-harm aspect of it where, a wrestler will break a light tube over their own head or carve their own chest with a light tube or whatever, take a back bump onto a light tube. And it's kind of silly, but the purpose of it, we'll say, is that, that wrestler is using that as an intimidation game against their opponent. And, that never really comes across until this match. So, after Ryder hits this stupid broski boot and is, taunting the crowd, Gage breaks a light tube over his head, basically saying, you just threw me through light tubes, dude. This is what I do for a living. And it freaks Cardona out so much, he bails from the ring and tries to leave. And I loved that because that's exactly what that spot is supposed to do to somebody. And it finally, really came across here. And again, they do such a good job of selling that Cardona can't leave because of the GCW crowd, right? There's no guardrails, no assigned seating. He's trying to, wade his way through all of these crazy bloodthirsty fans that won't let him leave. And it was really cool. They have this kind of glass case full of action figures at ringside, playing into the Cardona being this action figure nerd thing. And they tried to do a cool spot with it where Gage goes for a chair shot and Cardona ducks, and Gage, is supposed to smash this display case of all of these rare action figures and, get under Cardona's skin that way. But it didn't really work. The case didn't really break. It just kind of toppled over. So it's kind of goofy, but it allowed Cardona to get a little bit of an advantage in the match. And again, something that I love, Cardona hits a chair shot, rolls into the ring, and starts telling the referee to count. And again, such a little thing, but it's so good because there's no countouts in GCW. This is a death match. And, there's Cardona trying to get the cheap win, and the referee's like, I'm not counting him out. Where are you, man? So again, just a little thing that adds to this great Matt Cardona appearance. In the ring, Matt Cardona ends up using a light tube. And again, I keep, repeating this, but he's so great in this match because he smashes Gage with a light tube. And when the light tube explodes, he almost seems shocked by it. This light tube broke in his hand. He doesn't know what to expect from it. It's quite the sensation, maybe shouldn't admit this, I've been hit with light tubes before. I've done that whole backyard thing, right? So, it's to hit someone or be hit with a light tube, it's this crazy sensation if you're not prepared for it, if you're not a deathmatch wrestler. So, again, it was just an amazing sell job from him. But then he kind of gets this air about him, I'm a deathmatch wrestler. I can do this. And he, smashes a light tube on the ground just to piss off the fans. And, he body slams, Nick Gage onto it. and it's all so good, and he's so great. And Nick Gage brings in, a pane of glass and tries to use it, but Cardona puts the brakes on, and it leads to this great out of nowhere moment where, after avoiding the whip into the glass, Cardona kind of, turns around and gets speared through the glass out of nowhere by Gage. He eats this pane of glass, cuts up his back, blood all over the white tank top and white pants that he's wearing. And it was so good. It was unexpected. And then from there, you get the satisfying payoff of Nick Gage just ruining this guy. Light tubes over the head, light tubes to the back, carving him up with a light tube. You get the pizza cutter spot, that they really pushed from the David Arquette match. And Cardona, again, kudos to him for, taking this punishment. He's in a death match, and he's, taking all of these crazy death match spots. He bleeding profusely out of his back and his shoulder. Like, he really went all out in this thing. But what was so great here is, again, just how he sells everything. You have all of these deathmatch wrestlers that take these big bumps and it's kind of like, okay, and move on to the next one. But Cardona, coming from that WWE background where that stuff is really pushed, he's so amazing. And there's this moment when he's just bleeding all over the place, and he just goes like, what the fuck is happening? And it's so good because, like, that's how a person would react in that situation. If you're in there and all of a sudden you're bleeding all over the place and, like, you can't believe it, like, that's going to be your reaction. Like, what the fuck is going on? Like, why is this happening to me? And he's so great, just being like, help me, when he's getting, like, carved up and all of this stuff, and just showing, like, the absolute, like, shock and, trauma that he's going through, which is exactly what would happen to somebody that's not used to a death match being in something like that. Like I said, dabbled in that stuff, and, like, having your back ripped open and bleeding all over the place, it's kind of a shocking thing. So, just to see somebody sell that, it's so good. And it just adds so much more to the violence that you're seeing in this match, which we, as deathmatch wrestling fans can become really desensitized to. But here, how many times have we seen somebody get hit with a light tube? But when it's sold like that, you really buy into it, right? That, oh my God, like, this is a horrific thing that I'm experiencing. He's so good in it. But again, like, to his credit, like, he evolves throughout this match. He starts fearful, then he gets a bit of an ego, and then he, is in this and is fighting for survival. And while he gets that, he gets this moment where he slips out from underneath the pane of glass that Gage is trying to, like, Vader bomb him through, and he hits a superplex on Gage through this pane of glass, cutting both of them up. But again, it just shows that now this man is in a fight for his life that he needs to win if he wants to continue to live. And it's really great, gripping, compelling stuff. He gets a really good near fall, or I should say that Gage kind of gets this great near fall moment where, Ryder goes for the Rough Rider, that kind of like leg lariat thing that he does, and Gage counters it into the choke slam, and it seems like that's probably going to be the end. And then we get into all the overbooking. So to criticize when GCW does these matches, on paper, they seem like these big, over the edge 98 epics, but they always come off a little forced, a little sloppy, and a